This is Pod Populi.
Podcast for the people.
Good morning. Glad to be here. Welcome to the Born or Made podcast, Jack.
Thanks, Larry. Good to be here.
Yeah, great facility. First time I was here was yesterday, and I was so impressed. I had my first official workout, and I can say I'm a little bit sore.
How you feeling? Where you
I feel
feeling?
good. I'm feeling it in the old glutes, man, and that thing's. I'm a little sore down here, but it's okay. So tell me. So where were you born at? Originally?
I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So I'm a Steeler fan. It's funny. I was born and raised in Pittsburgh. I lived there until I was 18 years old. I grew up in the 70s. So I tell people I'm a Steeler fan, a Catholic, and an American in that order.
So I grew up in Texas. So obviously, I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan. So
I know a thing or two about the Cowboys.
Yeah, Terry Bradshaw was not a guy that I liked. As I got older, I have a ton of respect for him because he was such a winner. But yeah, Lynn Swann wasn't a guy that we liked a lot back in those days either.
No, I know.
Yeah. But what a great childhood, just having those kind of rivalries. We don't have those anymore.
Yeah, that kind of working class neighborhood environment and that gritty Pittsburgh environment. It's funny because, maybe not funny, more interesting. The economy was terrible. And my father worked at the light company, and he worked 48 years at Duquesne Light Company. So he kept his job through the tough times. But a lot of the dads and moms, for that matter, in the neighborhood were out of work. I should have had much more of a memory of tough economic times, but I really don't, because the sports teams were winning. The Steelers were winning. The Pirates were winning. The Penguins were winning. University of Pittsburgh was winning. So there was this unbridled optimism that you had, even though the economy was terrible. So when you think about the societal impact of something like sports, to just one kid growing up and multiply me by all the people there, there's this, that you'll hear this Pittsburgh pride coming out of people, particularly of my vintage. And it really goes back to that, with that kind of good community, working around that kind of activity. It's just great. So
you were in the city of Pittsburgh?
I was in Dormont. I grew up in Dormont.
All right.
And then we moved to Mount Lebanon. I went to Mount Lebanon High School, so the South Hills.
So did you play sports back in school?
I did. I was a typical athlete, basketball, football, baseball. I did that for a little while. Didn't play in college. I was a knucklehead kid, so I got myself into some trouble through high school.
Yes.
And that happens to many of us.
I was there.
So that's it.
Yeah. So where did you go to college at?
I went to Case Western, so
Okay.
in Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay.
So I went to Carnegie Mellon when I was in high school to do some math and physics because they found out I was pretty good at math.
Okay.
But I went to Case Western full time, and that was a fun journey. So I studied mechanical engineering. I stayed around. I met this hot girl who was a computer engineer. Has now been my wife for 32 years.
Congratulations on that.
So she was 2 years behind me. So I stayed for a master's degree. And
In engineering?
In engineering.
Okay, you stayed. Okay.
But I also built a nonprofit program. We were building equipment for people with disabilities in the local area. So pro bono engineering services. I'd walk into a hospital, physical therapist's, lab, find a little girl with cerebral palsy who needs a device. So we're an engineering school with resources. I'd go back, make the device, go back and give it to them. Got my friends to start doing it.
Really?
And that led to the school inviting me to join their faculty. So I taught mechanical and aerospace engineering for 6 years at Case. And I was one of the only non-PhDs on the faculty, full-time faculty. But that gave me this platform. I wanted to start businesses. The faculty credentials made me look smarter than I was, right?
You're
I was young.
Yeah, you're young.
I was very young.
Yes.
And I was teaching graduate courses and undergraduate courses in product development, design, and manufacturing. So I came at it from an academic rigor perspective, but then I had my wife and I started a couple of companies in Cleveland. We had the nonprofit going. You remember when you were in your 20s and you could work 24 hours, right? So that's what we did. And I went to buy a company in my late 20s. And that's what got me exposed to people buy and sell companies for a living. I met somebody. I met a trustee at the university. I was at a faculty trustee lunch. And this guy says, hey, what do you do? What do I do? And I said, look, I'm looking to buy this small manufacturing company outside of Cleveland. And he said, people buy and sell companies for a living on Wall Street. And he described what I've done for the last 25 years. I never even knew it existed. He said, I was at GE. I ran a division for 25 years of GE. 2 partners at Goldman Sachs bought this multi-billion-dollar company called 𝗕ecie𝗿𝘁𝘁. They recruited me in to run it. And he described my job for the last 25 years. Right. And he said, they're really smart. they make a lot of money, and they're nice guys. I never heard Wall Street described that way. So here I am, 29 years old, I've been married for 4 years, go back to my wife and said, some guy just described a job that if that exists, I want to go do it. Meanwhile, she was getting her MBA at night, right? She had a full-time job, we had the business, we were just doing all these things. And I said, well, I have to go to business school, and I have to do it full-time. I felt like a total wimp because she was doing everything else.
Yeah.
So I went off to Wharton for an MBA with the idea that I'm going to go to this place called Goldman Sachs. I'll hate everybody because Wall Street people have to be hateable.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they have to be hateable,
That's
right? That was my perspective.
Every movie tells you,
right? And but I'll just figure out what they do, and I'll go back to doing my own thing. And I stayed there for 18 years. I joined Goldman Sachs, and went into private equity. So that's basically I started off, for 6 months in investment banking, then I went into private equity, where we'd take control of large companies for 5 to 7 years, add value, and then either take them public or sell them. So that's what I did. I was at Goldman Sachs for 18 years. I was a partner there leading the industrials and services private equity business. And then I went to TPG Capital, another private equity firm. Did that for 7 years through 2 funds. And then just retired a couple years ago. And this is what I do in retirement.
So how awesome is that? So when you were doing all of your private equity, so your primary focus was industrial type stuff? So when you say industrial, give me an idea of what that is.
Yeah, so I looked after the industrials and services part of the economy. So there are people who do consumer goods, people who do healthcare, people who do technology. So industrials and services is pretty broad. It's 40% of the economy, so it's a wide variety of things.
I did not realize.
Companies like Aramark,
Okay.
food services business. I had an investment in a company called Keenan Advantage. They have fuel tankers, 5,000 gasoline tankers across North America. Logistics and transportation companies, a jet manufacturer. So a wide variety of industrial and services companies, which, by the way, aren't the most sexy businesses in the world, right?
Well, I'm a manufacturing guy, so for me, they're sexy. I think that's cool stuff.
Yeah.
So
I think they're cool too.
Yeah,
but I'll give you that. So my wife, Aramark is an amazing business, absolutely amazing business. We took Aramark private in 2005,
So they were public?
They were public.
then
We
you
took
took
them
them back.
private.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm very interested in Aramark. And my wife says, "Oh, you think you're cool? You sell $10 hot dogs and take lunch money from children." I'm like, "Yeah, but it's 300,000 people around the world who do that."
Yeah.
I mean, that
a big
management team that does that's amazing. But she has a good way of keeping me in check.
So you weren't just primarily focused on the U.S., then you were global.
Well, our funds were global. I ran the industrials and services in the Americas. You tend to be focused on a particular region and a particular sector in that business.
Interesting. Yeah, it's amazing. So you don't think about it as I'm a consumer, I manufacture trusses, but you think about like the lid on top of a salad bottle is made by an industrial company, and we just take it off and throw it in the trash. But there's massive companies that do that kind of stuff.
It has to be right. It has to be done well. It has to be done at an appropriate cost.
Yeah.
You can't let contaminants in. You and I both know there's so much to it, and it's good when people don't think about it. That means it's doing its job.
So industrial then, this may seem kind of silly, I don't. So industrial though is very separate from medical, but when you're manufacturing the devices, does that become industrial?
Well,
or does it still maintain a
it's
medical
a
side?
little crossover. I've had
That's what I was
businesses that
wondering,
had medical device components of their business. I invested in a couple of auto parts businesses and a lot of auto companies, auto part
Right, yeah, I think of
manufacturers.
that,
We're also
but-
getting into medical because high performance manufacturing can be used not just in one industry; it can go across multiple industries. So there is crossover in end markets, but a typical healthcare investor might be a healthcare services investor,
yep.
right? Healthcare products. So it really, the way in the private equity world, it's typically a very small team of people that sit around and make decisions on behalf of the fund, and each partner has his or her responsibility for particular expertise, but the businesses are evaluated by the entire team, and investment decisions are made by the entire team. So although I was an industrials and services person, I'd sit in on our discussions about our media investments, our technology investments, our healthcare investments, and participate, because there are some best practices you get that really do transcend the industry you're in.
Yeah, so I think you being with an engineering background, but then you're Goldman Sachs. So when I think of that, I'm thinking you're a finance guy. But really, when you're doing these and you're reviewing these businesses, are you really looking at the engineering, the manufacturing process that then maybe goes to another part of the team that's that reviews the financial side, or you kind of you do both?
You're a business person, so,
Okay, so
you're a business person with flavors.
Okay, you just happen to be an engineer.
I happen to be an engineer,
Right, okay.
which is not your typical. My path. I don't want to say there's a typical path, but there's kind of a typical path.
Mm-hmm.
My three sons are heading down the typical path: go to University of Chicago, study economics, go into finance, go to Wall Street and do, that route. I had no idea. I mean, I just was kind of finding my way through life, right? Basically. So, and I did engineering for a while, and I had a great time doing it. And then I pivoted into a finance role, but I had to go to Wharton because as a young, professor entrepreneur in Cleveland, Ohio, with dreams of going to Wall Street and working at a place like Goldman Sachs, I had zero chance. I mean,
Because you didn't have the credentials, really.
Zero chance. Nobody would pay any attention to me.
Right,
So
yeah.
for me, after being, on the faculty for 6 years, I went back to being a student for 2 years. And I have that conversation with a lot of young people who, pivoting in a career path, we were doing well. My wife and I were having fun. Everything was going well. And to take yourself out, stick yourself into a different environment, and start bottom rungish in a different industry. And for me, it was a no-brainer. That just sounded so sexy to me to go take over companies all around the world. Of course. And I had a partner in life she was like, okay, cool, you go do that. We'll make all this work. It's that kind of journey where you're taking yourself out of a path that you're pretty happy with to try another one isn't for everybody. I encourage people to do it. Young people, as you know, also think you have to do this and you have to do that and you have to be in a race. And I tell my kids all the time, it's not, there's no destination, right? It's kind of the journey, and there is no rush. So I've been counseling a lot of young people through that. But long-winded background too, I've had an engineering background, but I completely pivoted into finance, right? So going into finance for 25 years, I relied on my engineering. I rely on my engineering here. Mm-hmm. Like, we're a consumer goods company. 𝗕cie𝗿𝗁 is one of the greatest fitness inventors in the world of fitness products. And with my product development, design, and manufacturing academic background, I can be really helpful there. But he's a creative genius, and I can bring some process and rigor and discipline to it. But it's funny because the engineering background on Wall Street, I think what it does, people can't bullshit you with technology.
That's right. Yeah.
Right? It really is helpful to have that engineering background just for that reason. I also, buying large companies, I could go walk a plant floor and I kind of know what I should be looking for. That doesn't differentiate me versus another industrial, investor who doesn't have that. But it just gives you a little bit of a different, perspective, a different ability to connect with people, a different way to really, get more information than you normally would by just reading spreadsheets or documents, like you can relate with people more.
Yeah, so, you're in this business, you're thinking about engineering. When I think of an engineer, to me, you're black and white. You're not black and white. You do have a gray matter in you. Did you adapt and learn that, or do you think that was a skill you already had? Because obviously pivoting, going into these places, that's unusual. So that's a gift in itself. Did you always have that ability to do that growing up, do you think, and then just happen to get into engineering because you were really good at math?
I think I think it's that. It's the I've always been entrepreneurial. So that in scrappy Pittsburgh neighborhood. I have friends that have gone off to all different industries and really done well because we grew up with that optimism and that scrappy nature. For me, I think engineering was just, I was good at math, and once again, I caused a lot of trouble back in the day. So I think that was just a way of just keeping me focused on something. Because I wasn't very well read, I wasn't very well educated, but I was good at that side. So I ended up playing that. But I think, even when I went into engineering, right? When I joined the faculty at 𝗕cie, it's a Case Western for engineering is a theoretical-based engineering program, right? And they wanted me to bring the practice side of it. And so rather than doing the theoretical engineering, I was doing the product development, design, manufacturing classes, and we were doing hands-on real work. We were working with university hospitals, Metro Health Medical Center, and the Cleveland Clinic, and we were providing equipment to their patients by going back and meeting that 8-year-old girl with cerebral palsy, who bends her arm and doesn't know her arm's bent. So let's go back and let's build a sensor to remind her, a little thing that vibrates, and then she can put her arm down, and she likes it because it's pink. Like that's not engineering, right? That's product development. That's solving a problem and doing it with technical skills. So I was able to bring that, and we were able to bring that into the classroom of people who are doing foundational theoretical engineering. And I think the school recognized that having that blend is really good, right? Because then you could be more of a business person. So I think I was more on the business of technology and the business of engineering than the hardcore foundational engineering. I could do it, but that wasn't really where I was excited. I was excited in creating things and creating organizations. And I thought if I could build an organization that could create product in a nonprofit sector, when I can eventually pay people, if I ever make any money, if I can pay people, then I'll be that much better off. And so then New York Times picked us up, ABC World News. If you remember the American Agenda. Yeah. So Peter Jennings did a big 5-minute feature on the program because it's just such a good idea. You have engineering students doing what they should be doing, product development, and giving it to people who need it in the community. I think every engineering school in the world should be doing that.
So you kept talking about, helping these people. I mean, you have a very good, just listening to us earlier talking about your stuff in your, over in the gym and stuff, I say gym, where we worked out. And you have an incredible passion, but you have an incredible compassion. Like, clearly that little girl motivated you. You talked about her a couple of times.
Sure.
Do you see that still as part of, because even like doing what I did yesterday, I see where this helps me. And does that drive you as well, just like knowing that you're helping other people as well?
Yeah, that's foundational with me.
Yeah.
It comes from.
It seems like that's a big
It comes
deal
from
for
my
you.
family.
Yeah.
We're here to be part of the community and help people. And it might be a little bit of contrast to a Wall Street guy perspective,
Yeah, because
right?
I want to talk about that.
But I'll talk about that in the context, right? So I went into engineering just because I did the nonprofit program and then found out people were traveling the world, taking over companies and creating value with the companies. And for me, what I found really fascinating, I felt I was making the world better. I felt like we'd take a control of a company and we'd create value on one hand, but we would be making the company better. And making the company better is just an improvement in the world. So I felt like, even though I was a Wall Street guy, I felt like I was actually doing a good service for everybody because we did things the right way. We made mistakes, we got things wrong, clearly, but our entire motivation was to create value in these entities that we'd get involved with. So for me, it was a continuation of it. It was just a little different. And it sounds like I went from nonprofit saving the world to a crass, Wall Street dude. And I don't see it that way at all.
No.
I see there's continuing thing. Now, after 25 years of doing that, I decided, look, I'm done investing other people's money. I really, Metka and I, my wife, decided to focus on health, wellness, and happiness. That's just the journey we set off on 3 years ago. How do we take, obviously the money that we've made and then focus on that? And so then we went with purpose to focus on health, wellness, and happiness, not necessarily from an individual perspective. There's a selfish side of it. I want to be healthy and happy.
Absolutely.
58 years old. I want another 50 years of crushing it, right?
Yep.
So there's a selfish side of that, but it's sharing that and helping develop, things that allow people to lead a happy and healthy lifestyle. That's the key driver for us. And obviously we're focused on our family and our community and our friends. But if we can have a small impact on the world by doing that, that's great.
Well, you're helping people. I'm looking at, I'm 61 now. I'm just trying to maintain a good quality of life. I live on a farm. I got to climb in and out of tractors. People think, oh, you've got to be this and that, and all these people are just trying to be athletic. But no, you still got to pick up a bag of dog food, right?
Yeah.
Well, that can be hard at 61 if you're not taking care of yourself, climbing in and out of a tractor. And so for me, I think that's what you're doing too, and that's where I keep seeing like this passion, compassion for you. You seem so driven by trying to help others.
Well, there is a personal goodness side of that too. The endorphin bursts you get, we all know, right?
Yeah.
I get excited thinking about some of the things we're able to do, right? And I get activated and driven, and I'm accused of having intensity issues, right? And I do have intensity issues, right? But it's because there's just a finite amount of time that we have, and so let's get after it. Let's use it, right? So that part to me, it's a good motivator. And now with my 22, 20, and 18-year-old sons, right, we're showing them the way, right?
Absolutely.
And as a parent, you want to demonstrate to that to them because you want them to be focused in benefiting the same way and then benefiting others the same way.
Really? Yeah, that's interesting. So on Wall Street, you go in, like, you think of these guys are cutthroat, money, 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 money. You're looking at the helping these companies become good, become great, fix them and stuff like that. So was your misconception, did you have a wrong misconception about Wall Street? Or did you think you got in there and made it work for you? I mean, how did that work for you?
Yeah, I had a lot of misperceptions about Wall Street because the narrative you hear from outside, it is cutthroat. They'll sell their mother to make a buck, that kind of thing. And when I got there, that was the biggest surprise to me. Not only, and Goldman Sachs is a special place. Goldman Sachs, the people I met at Goldman Sachs are truly remarkable people. They're the kind of people I would want to have over to my house to have dinner with my mother, right? And I would never have guessed that as a kid from Pittsburgh hearing about Wall Street. Never would have guessed that. Not only that, were they good people? They were good people. And by the way, not everybody. There's good and bad everywhere. But I would say largely, very good people, just from a genuine, good nature. But the way we conducted business, and not in every time. You can find examples where people do things wrong. You can find that everywhere. But early on, I was faced with situations, and it was very clear to me, there's no gray area. We make the right decision 100% of the time. And that's what's expected, and that's what you're here to do. And that's because it's the right thing to do. But then there's also where Goldman Sachs was known as being long-term greedy. So you can look at it from a crass way, long-term greedy. You do the right thing because your reputation makes all the difference in the world over a long period of your career. And when you make short decisions because of bad reasons, that costs you in the long run. So you can look at it from a selfish perspective, or you can look at it just that's the way we're supposed to do it. And nobody's making decisions one way or the other. But it was absolutely the business practice to make decisions the right way. And I saw it. I saw Goldman Sachs would fire clients because of personal misbehavior, right? Things that you would just say, are you kidding me? You would not have guessed that going in. And I was tangentially involved in one situation. While I was my first summer at Goldman Sachs, I get to Wall Street, I'm going to meet all these snakes, and a management team acted inappropriate with a very young Goldman Sachs analyst. It was the roadshow was done, everything was done, but they did something inappropriate afterwards. The senior partners of that team went out and fired that client. The CEO was given all of his private wealth money back. The chairman of the board was told that Goldman Sachs will not do business with your firm anymore as long as you have these managers here. And this was, the 90s, right? And so it goes back, and that was so foundational to me, and that experience was so eye-opening that I thought, wow, it's just not what I had heard, right? And so that's why I got there and I thought I'd spend a couple years, figure out what they're doing.
I would think.
Go back to doing my own thing,
right?
And I got there and I blinked, and 18 years goes by, right? It's just that's kind of life, right?
And were you in New York, or were you still?
I was in New York.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
So
Okay.
my wife grew up in Cleveland, went to school at 𝗕cie𝗿𝘁𝘁. We lived in Cleveland. I taught there, and one of the other things I thought I'd go there for a short period of time because she didn't think she'd like New York, right? And I said, it doesn't matter. Let's just go. It's just us. If we don't like it, we'll just go out and do our own thing.
Right.
But we ended up staying there. We raised our family in the Upper West Side of Manhattan before we moved then out to San Francisco. When I left Goldman Sachs, I joined TPG.
Oh, wow. So you went the whole other coast.
Moved to San Francisco. We summered in Long Island, but we moved out to San Francisco for 7 years.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Now, did you enjoy that out there?
Parts of it, we're more East Coast than we are West Coast. San Francisco has its challenges. The quality of living in the city is pretty rough. We were subject to multiple incidents of crime, so
and you got
we've
kids
left
at this point.
Yeah. So we just moved out of San Francisco 6 weeks ago.
Oh,
so
really?
our youngest just graduated high school, so we kept the house there, and we had transitioned down here 3 years ago, but we kept a place for 2 years for him to finish up his high school, and then with the plan that once he was done, we're going to be here and then Long Island for the summers. So yeah, we were complicated. We were bi-coastal for a couple of years there.
That's not complicated. That's hard. I mean, I went to Seattle a couple of weeks ago, and it's just brutal going that far. I mean, it's just the time change and finally getting cycled back, and then you got to come back, and it's
I think
hard.
it's a matter of what you're used to. For 30 years, I've traveled all over the world all the time. I'll go to Asia for a meeting and turn around and come back. So for me, the travel isn't that much of a grind. But yeah, it's, the living apart from your wife, that gets to be a grind.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I was talking to one guy the other day, and one of the things I was jealous, they're out 290 days a year traveling. He's a director, but he always has his wife. And he said that, and I was like, man, I'm jealous. I'm only here for 3 days, but it's like I'd like having her close. I'll be 40 years in August.
Yeah,
long
it's a big
time.
number.
Yeah, big number. And yeah.
But you have to also remember, we had talked about the heritage for the Navy SEAL heritage within this company with Randy 𝗕cie as the SEAL Team 6 Squadron Commander. And I've been on the board of the SEAL Foundation for a long time. And, just because a kid I grew up with, another kid from the neighborhood named 𝗠𝗱𝗲 Smith, he served for 30 years. So think of a Navy SEAL they call 𝗠𝗱𝗲.
I love that.
Now
name.
you know what he looks like.
Yeah.
It is funny.
Club.
Yeah, so I got 3 boys. My guys say, oh, he's the world's greatest warrior. And he kind of is. He's one of the most highly decorated combat leaders of our generation, and we were little kids together. But my mom always said he was the nicest kid from our neighborhood, right? And so you think about it. So we've had that influence in our lives. He's my best friend from childhood. And, when for 30 years, he deployed 290 days a year. On average, 290 days a year, they're overseas. So they're not coming home at night. They're not coming home on the weekends. So I've always, from a relative basis, the kind of travel I was doing, by the way, there's no risk. I'm going to see my kids in the morning. Even if I don't get home at night, I'll see them
And
in
you
a
could
couple
actually
days.
call him. He's not calling.
Right.
Yeah, that's
so,
right.
Life's full of relative, perspective,
it's a
I
good
think,
way to look
instead
at
of
it.
absolute.
Yeah. Wow, I would have never. Yeah, okay. So, you Randy, right? Your partner. So, how did you get to know him? SEAL, obviously.
Yeah,
so
just
through
through the SEAL community. And to know Randy is to love Randy. Every woman swoons and every guy gets a bro crush on him. It just happens. He's that guy. He really is. He's just a special human being. Yeah. And so Randy's a buddy. And he came to me and he said, hey, Jack, some private equity guys took over the company. I don't think it's going too well. They're doing a financing. And he had been kicked out, right? So he said, can you take a look? And here I am. I'm on this journey of health, wellness, and happiness, right?
Yeah.
And so another childhood friend is a spine surgeon in L.A. And so we're building a hospital in L.A., right? With Doc's Surgical Center. He's one of the top spine surgeon on the West Coast. And I helped some guys open up an MMA gym in San Francisco. I trained jiu-jitsu, and the guys I train with at Scrap Pack. So we built a gym there, and then Randy says this, and I said, yeah, I'll help you out. I'll take a look. I've taken how many 1,000 management meetings?
Yeah. So
I called the bankers and got on, and I came back. I said, yeah, they really have. They've gotten themselves into trouble. That's bad news, but hey, I'm on this journey of health, wellness, and happiness, investing my own money. I take over companies for a living. Why don't we buy the company? And that's what we decided to do. And so
because it's still a private company.
It is a private company.
Just gotten a private equity group in.
Yes, they took
to try
control.
To grow it. Is that what he's trying to do?
They took control.
Okay.
And when they took control, that's when they separated him, and then they ran it. And COVID was tough on many businesses. Yeah. It was the best of times and the worst of times, depending on what you were doing. Right.
Yeah. And this industry got crushed because they closed them all down for the most part.
Yeah, and the products companies did really well, but it was a moment in time, and then it changed. So depending on how you manage that, some people got themselves into a cash crunch, and that's what happened with TRX. So for me, though, what better platform if you're focused on health, wellness, and happiness? I love to work out, right? By the way, I would work out all the time as a Wall Street guy. Nobody gave a shit. I'd show up at investment committee meetings with black eyes, and everybody look at me like I have a judgment issue.
Yeah,
right.
That's right.
I show up at Global Town Hall with a black eye. Everybody's like, "Yeah,
what'd you do?"
It's so on brand for us. And so it was the lifestyle I was leading, but now I actually can do it professionally. But I will say, I didn't buy the company to run it. Randy made me do it. Randy and Mark Fields both, told me I had to be the CEO of the company. And so that's a new part of the journey. I'm old dog, new tricks here. So pivoting then to be in a position to run the company is another major pivot in my life.
Yeah, are you good at marketing?
No.
Okay, so you've got a great marketing team.
So here, we are good at marketing.
Yeah,
right?
I look at your stuff.
But
You've got this
we're
in.
amazing.
Yeah.
But that's the least intuitive part of business for me. I ran industrials and services.
Yeah,
I wasn't a consumer. But Mark Fields is another very close friend. I'm blessed with some unbelievable friends. So Mark ran Ford Motor Company. So he ran a $150 billion company, Fortune 10 size company CEO. And he's an investor and on our board, very active. He works out here every day. So he lives around the corner.
Okay.
So Mark and Randy came to me and said, you have to do this. And I told them, I said, but I'm not a marketing guy. Mark, not only is a Fortune 10 size company CEO, he came out of the marketing department at Ford. So he knows marketing better than most of the average bears,
Yes, I
right?
would say.
And then Randy obviously is a marketing genius. He created a global brand, right? And didn't spend money on marketing doing it. He just did it the old-fashioned way. He sold a good product. So I told them I wasn't going to do it because I don't have the skill set that I thought was necessary for the job. But if they were willing to help me and we hire a world-class team, let's do it. And so I have Mark Fields as a personal CEO coach. I have Randy Hettrick in my corner guiding me to do it. And we have a phenomenal team. I call our management team the Avengers. we were able to pull together these world-class people to come into this platform and then just take it to the next level. And so that's what you've been seeing in the little over a year and a half we've had it now. And we've rebuilt everything. We rebuilt the tech stack. We rebuilt our entire supply chain. You're a manufacturer.
That's hard.
Rebuilt our entire supply chain in the first year. We rebuilt the entire marketing program. We've done literally everything you can do to rebuild the company. And so we've now put that rebuild behind us. And now we're focused on our growth path, which is a pretty exciting time. But I tell people it's like fixing the plumbing, the electrical, and the foundation of the house, the stuff you will never see.
That's right.
If it's not working, oh my
You're in
gosh,
trouble.
right? We had to do all of that. And by the way, it's funny because I control the company. We don't have any debt. Mark Fields is an investor and our board invests. But I told them, look, I'm a deal guy. Don't let me buy a company because that's what I do for a living, right? It's like, I know that, like people know other things, right? And I said, don't let me buy a company for a year and a half or 2 years. And then because we had all of that transformational work to do. But then we bought Weibel. 6 months into it, I meet the founder of Weibel, and it's just such a beautiful tool. And so I got the board together. I said, okay, your job is to tell us why we shouldn't buy this. And everybody's like, we have to buy the company, right? So while we were doing the foundation, the plumbing, the electrical, we built a room on the house, which is not the easiest thing in the world to do. So I couldn't be more proud of the team. The team of Avengers we've kind of pulled together to do this both at the board and at the senior management level. They've been extraordinary.
So do you have a research and development department that, like the one that, I don't know what it's called, with the
RIP trainer.
I did that yesterday. I'm like, I'm going to get one of these. Yeah. Like I could see where this could apply for me driving, I was trying to think about that kind of stuff. But are y'all
So the answer is yes. We have an extraordinary engineering team led by Matt Brown. Matt was a senior product development engineer at Nike. He was at Nike for a dozen years, led the Nike Fuel Band, self-lacing shoes, did a lot of mechanical and electrical product development because usually people are siloed. Not only that is he has real software skills as well. And before Nike, he spent years in the auto industry, in the acoustics industry, living in China for 10 years, in Hong Kong, living in Hong Kong for 10 years. So he brings such great experience and just a person you normally wouldn't think you can attract to a business like this. He's all in. And you know why? Because the head of our supply chain ran global warehousing for Nike. And he was a friend of a friend. Yep. I said, look, we have a horrific supply chain in the company. We have to completely retool it. I mean, logistics is something I know, transportation and logistics. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to do it. I haven't done it as an operator. So I needed to find a top operator to do it. And a consulting friend said, hey, there's this guy, Woody at Nike. I'm sure he'll know somebody. So I talked to Woody. I'm like, why don't you just come on board, right? He goes, yeah, sure, okay, I'm in. So he joined us. And then we had to find the world's greatest product developer or engineer. He's like, well, there's this guy, Matt Brown at Nike, who's just great. Maybe he has an idea about somebody, so he's now in. But it's not just, the engineering and the supply chain. Our intellectual property is very important to us. We have patents on our products all over the world. And Alan Villanueva is our general counsel, who's a top not only patent attorney, but he's also a patent litigator. Very few people are both. You're either a patent attorney or a patent litigator.
Yeah, makes sense, right? Yeah.
And he was a senior partner at Dwayne Morris, who had protected this brand for over 10 years, and now he's in-house as our general counsel. He's also a nuclear engineer. So he's a
lawyer,
legit. Oh, no,
he's nuclear.
Yeah, and he also he'll make you sick because he's written a sci-fi series. He reads 12 scientific articles a week. No, he's that guy.
Yeah. Wow.
French speaker, French-Canadian speaker,
sure,
taught himself English when he came over to study law. Real savant. But you put that kind of team together where you have, creative genius Randy Hettrick, Matt Brown, who has created some great products in a couple different industries. Alan Villanueva is just the smartest guy in every room he walks into. Woody, who can do the sourcing, supply chain, products all over the world, rebuilt our supply chain in 1 year. You look at that kind of team, it's remarkable. So look, from my perspective, I can do the same thing on marketing, I can do the same thing on sales. Like, we just have that great team.
Wow. I mean, I was telling you, like, on these straps right here, the release on those things, how easy that is. Like, I didn't even know what I was doing, and you do it like twice, and you're like, oh, this isn't hard. And I was watching everybody in our group do that, and my mind, of course, thinking, it's like, what a great idea. Just that alone is so amazing.
It's the genius of Randy Hetrick. Now, he came out, and I mentioned the origin story, but he came out with this because he needed it as a SEAL Team 6 Squadron Commander who travels. And people think, oh, he invented that in the SEAL teams. Oh, no. He invented the precursors of this. So all along, this has been improved multiple times, and therefore we've built the patent family around this, that we keep patents that the improvements each time add to our intellectual property.
So I've got the app now, so I'm going to start using the app. I mean, is that kind of the direction y'all are going to go? Because in my mind, as I was going through all this, I was like, wow, if they had these facilities in my little hometown, it's a small town.
Sure.
Could I get something like that there? Because all these things pop up and some stay, some fade. This one, as I was telling you, to me is the most amazing thing about it too. A lot of things is it's just not intimidating.
It's portable. It's easy.
You're
you can
working
take it
out,
anywhere.
and you're like, this thing is kicking my butt. And all I did was adjust it down, or I put it on my feet, and I'm like, this is freaking hard. Do a plank on that thing.
Yeah.
It changes the intensity level a lot.
Sure.
But I'm now gonna, I'm gonna put one of these in my bag when I travel. And that's what I was telling you. I saw one of your ads on Instagram, and I see this lady, she puts it on the back door. I'm like, I'm getting one of these. And then I come and do this, get the chance to meet you, and now I'm like, this is amazing. Like, this is amazing stuff.
But you're right that the tool, the app, just really unlocks the value, right, of the
And
suspension
there's
trainer
like
and all
10
of them.
choices of just like, do I want a 5-minute work? How hard do I want to work? Am I brand new at this? I mean, that's all the stuff
So
that's
to
so
put that out in
amazing.
perspective, so we have 3,000 videos, and you could do a 5-minute, 10-minute, 20-minute, 30-minute, 45-minute, and it's very easy to filter through and get what you want.
Yeah.
And if you want to do core work, or if you want to do work on suspension trainer, if you want to do work on Y-belt, if you want to do suspension trainer and Y-belt, so you can very quickly filter to get exactly what you're looking for, and then you have, in the privacy of your home, somebody's going to guide you through a workout.
Or
right?
for me, my hotel. Like, that's just amazing. Like I told you, I stay at this dump, but it has a decent gym, because so many of these I go to, it never has what I want, so I have to kind of work around. Well, now I can travel with this, and I don't
Full
have
body.
to do anything. I can stay in my room if I choose to.
Or just take down the gym and
Take
throw
it
it
down,
over an anchor.
That's right. So for me, I was like, wow, that's like, I was really just like, I thought it was amazing. So where are you going now? I mean, you've got this great business, and so where do you think you're taking it from here? What's kind of your journey, or you don't have to expose your 5-year plan, but I know you have a plan.
Sure.
I mean, where are you going from here now?
So for us, we're an education business, because we're not just a products company. You really need to have education. So we're an education business that sells products. So our digital experience is foundational to what we do. So we're in one of our film studios. We have 2 world-class film studios down here. So we'll continue to make really exciting, fun content for people to be able to learn, not just learn, but after you learn this, you'll still want to use the app, because the workouts and the programming are that good.
I'm going to
right?
use the app for sure.
So the digital experience is foundational to us, and so we'll continue to build out the digital experience. But that's just on the consumer side, is what we're talking about. We also, on the commercial side, so TRX studio concept studios inside big box gyms, or programming to boutiques, so we can offer that same kind of programming to other people. Certifications, we have 350,000 certified trainers worldwide. So we certify 350,000, and 2/3 of those are outside the U.S. So we are truly a global brand.
Wow.
So we also activate with experiences, right? We had a summit here in Delray Beach. We'll be in London in September. We'll be in Namibia in October. We had 1,000 people gather in Athens, Greece a few months ago. We just had 3 summits in Asia the last 2 months. So we activate all over the world. And those summits are people who come to attend with us for 2 days that do pretty hardcore training. They're upping their skills as a trainer. Obviously, it's one of the greatest brand expressions that we have, right? Because people come together, and it's a very positive energy environment.
Absolutely.
But for 2 days, you're really bringing your training skills up. And we can do that all over the world. And so for us, really reinvigorating that ecosystem that we have of those trainers worldwide, that's also very important to us. And then we'll continue to come up with new products, right? We've come out with our own products that we've invented, or if somebody like, 𝗕cie𝗿𝗁𝘀𝘁, who invented 𝗬, somebody else comes up with a great idea, we'll layer them in, right? Because for us, we'll stay focused on functional training. The world is really focused on functional training now, right? Mm-hmm. Strength training, you hear time and time and time again. The GLP-1 phase that we're in right now has to be managed with strength training, right? To really offset the muscle loss. But strength training, not a lot of people want to get bulky. A lot of people would rather just get toned and fit. Mm-hmm. And so functional strength training gives you the look that most people are looking for. Some people want big bulk, and there's bodybuilding, and that's different. I like to push barbells too. So I'm multimodal, as some people are. But a lot of people want to just have that functional core strength and that functional strength. And so these kind of products really get you there. So what we'll do is we'll continue to lead the functional training space. And then, as we think about other parts of the health and wellness space in general, are there lifestyle things that we can do, experiences and other parts of that health and wellness ecosystem that will have a right to play? Because look, this team, having rebuilt this business in a very short period of time, has great capabilities. So what do we turn all of that energy and capability to next? That's what we're thinking through.
So you mentioned you have 350,000 certified trainers. Do you have different levels? Like I'm going to be a level 1 and I can do this, and then you keep going. So they're building on top of that.
Yes.
That you have that.
Yeah, and we keep a directory of the various levels that people get to. Our black and yellow are our highest level. They're the gurus of the industry and the gurus of the TRX ecosystem. Those are and we just had, I think I had 50 of them over at my house recently. You talk about a fun group of people. Very, very high end. They're the SEAL Team 6 of our TRX ecosystem, and they're terrific, right? And they're very influential in their own markets. They're all over the world. They help us train trainers on the ground all over the world. So it's a really important part of what we do. Like as you think about it, we came into this business, and obviously the brand. Mark Fields knows brands, as I said. And I'm smart enough to know brands, even though I haven't really done a lot of marketing. The brand's important, but in the products we have, the intellectual property. I was bragging about our intellectual property and our prowess, but really our ecosystem is so important to us. That engaged ecosystem around the world is just, it's one of the special parts of the company.
So this facility that you have here is amazing. Do you have others of these anywhere? This is it.
We have a sister one. Our partners in Denmark opened up a TRX, gym in their on their campus. So it's more of a sister gym. But no, this is us. TRX has always had a gym in their headquarters, right? We serve all other gyms. So for us, it's important that we have one because we want to obviously live the brand, but we can also test out a lot of equipment. We eat our own cooking, right? Doing our programming, it's a great place to be able to do that. But this is it. This is our global headquarters, and we opened this up. Oh, by the way, while we were rebuilding the foundation, doing all that, and making an acquisition, and we also built a headquarters. I forgot to mention that. We built a headquarters and opened this in February of this year. So this used to be an Office Depot. It's a lot sexier now.
This was an Office Depot?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay, I would have never seen that.
So now we have, our commercial gym that you saw is spectacular. We have 2 state-of-the-art film studios. We have our corporate offices. We have a new product development lab. We have storage space over here. So really, it's a great home base for people. Plus, you know what? It's a location for everybody around the world to come together and to be a part of TRX. It used to be in San Francisco. And people would go out there, and we would have gatherings from people all over the world. That's what was so special about our summit here. It could only fit so many people here. I assume we were at capacity for sure. But having a place for people to come together and feel the energy of the brand really matters. And in the world of remote work, having people work together side by side, that also is very helpful.
So you've got an incredible culture here. So how do you transpose that I mean, it's literally on a global level that have this positive energy around. I mean, obviously, people that are athletic are trying to make themselves better, functional. I mean, but how do you keep that in check? Because we have different, you're in different parts of the world. Culture is different.
Sure.
But it seems like listening to you, you have that everywhere. And how are y'all achieving that, or better yet, maintaining it on top of that?
So I'd love to try to take some credit for it, but I'll answer it from my perspective.
Okay.
I've worked in lots of different industries, right? In industrial services, in food services, security services, manufacturing, auto, all across
Wall
the board.
Street. I mean,
Wall Street.
yeah.
The fitness industry is a positive energy industry.
Absolutely.
It just is. That's one thing I've now noticed. And when I first got in, I'm just looking around, wow, these are very positive energy people. It was surprisingly positive. And I thought, are people crying themselves to sleep at night? Is this fake or
Fake, yeah, I was
bipolar?
saying
Or
it, yeah.
what's going on? What I've come to realize is this industry is really full of positive energy people. And the people who are attracted to this industry have that, and they're looking for it. And they're giving that to their clients, right? A lot of personal trainers then feed that back into their clients, and their clients, are attracted to them because of that. So I actually think we're starting off with a group of people who are really positive energy, right? And then Randy did a great job. He's a great spiritual leader, right? And so he did a great job in building the culture of TRX. And it's fun, and it's edgy, and it's different, and it doesn't look like you could really do everything you can do. And then when you find out it's this box of tricks, then there's a cool factor to it. So there's all parts of the business, from the people that you start with to the process they went with to the person. I think, I credit Randy with really founding and leading the functional training space in general, not just TRX. And you have somebody like that as a river guide who's just a genuinely good person. Like, all those gradients, I mean, we can only screw it up. Like, because we're starting with such a well-built culture that's known around the world, and a premium brand. And so what we continue to do is just feed that energy back to people in interesting forms. And that's how we do it. That's how we try to maintain. And we do our best to stay authentic, stay on brand. Everything we do, everything we process is with that in mind. Are we doing the right things for the brand? Are we doing what people in this industry or our consumers expect from us? And that's a high bar. Randy and the team set a very high bar, and we're just absolutely focused on doing that.
Wow. Well, we've finished up our entire thing. It went fast, a lot faster than I thought. So I always like to end with this final question. Listening to this dynamic story of, kid in Pittsburgh, Wall Street, now here you are here. You never think you would, I know you never thought you'd be here, 58 years ago. And what an amazing journey. But do you think during this entire process, do you think you were born, or do you think you were made to where you are today?
And I don't want to be the cop-out answer, but it's a little bit of both. We are definitely born. And you're born with some foundational skills, and everybody has different skills and different levels of skills. So that you're born with. What you do with those is made. So I think we're more made than we are born, because you can have great capabilities and wildly underperform versus those capabilities. You can have very modest capabilities and wildly outperform on those modest capabilities,
great
right?
analogy.
So I think it's the made. And look, I'm blessed with kids from the neighborhood, like a bunch of kids from Pittsburgh. I look at my friends, oh my gosh, Navy SEAL for 30 years, the top spine surgeon on the West Coast, a Hollywood mogul, guy who runs a major hedge fund. I look at all that and those are the kids I was running with and trying to keep up with, and I've been trying to keep up with them for 6 decades now, right? And so that's made. That's being, surrounded by a group of people that you're benefiting from the relationship with them, and it's motivating, and it's inspirational and aspirational, and they're encouraging you, they're helping you out. And I do think that family structure and the community you come from, I think it's much more made.
That's a great answer. Thank you very much. This was a great interview. Thank you. And I really do appreciate all your time.
Thanks, Larry. You make it easy.
Yeah, thanks again.